Hello, everyone. How can we use Ayurveda and yoga for preventive health is the topic of our discussion with Kristen Rae Stevens. Kristen is nationally certified Ayurvedic practitioner as well as a yoga specialist. She has been teaching Ayurveda and yoga to medical doctors across the country. I am Amita from Nourish Doc, a global platform for natural and holistic therapies. I am very excited to introduce all of you to Kristen Rae Stevens, who's joining us live from New York City. Namaste, Kristen, and welcome.
Namaste, Amita. Thank you so much. So hello to all of the Nourish Doc community. It's wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you for tuning in on your Saturday mornings. So my name is Kristen Rae, and I have been in the health and wellness field now for 2+ decades. So I have been a mindful practitioner, teaching mindfulness through movements, specializing in movement rehabilitation, neuromuscular rehabilitation, as well as stress reduction and stress ease, as well as starting to find strategies for healthier living, right? So learning lifestyle techniques, learning more about your individual patterns, your individual needs, your individual identification, and the resources that we can use in the multitudes that these practices have to offer for us. So Ayurveda and yoga are big worlds that give us an opportunity to be able to really tap into a lot of different resources. So I don't know where everybody is, but one of the things that I think that is really nice to kind of land and be a little bit cohesive, right? To kind of like be a group and move as a group. So we're invoking Ganesha, we've got Ganapati on the screen. So I thought maybe we just take a moment and do a little breathing exercise together, a little sit, a little body scan. So how's that sound?
That sounds amazing. That sounds
Wonderful.
great.
Wonderful. All right, so no matter where you are, if possible, get something touching the ground. So whether it's your feet or whether it's your seats, to see if you can really connect to the ground somehow. And then bring your fingertips together. So Maha Mudra, bring all of your fingertips touching very lightly. So you just kind of get a little bit of earth and then a little bit of sensitivity. And just let your hands kind of rest in your lap or rest on a table. And just kind of notice the touch that you feel at the tips of your fingertips for a moment. And then check in with your back, your spine. So does it feel like it needs a little more energy? Are you kind of just waking up? Or do you feel like maybe you've been awake for a while and you're quite alert and you could maybe soften back and soften down into your seat a little bit more? So adjust yourself accordingly. So we're all coming from different places and different activities. So just find out how to tune in and what's useful for you. And then don't look at your screen. So take your eyes away from the digital medium for a moment and just really lift your gaze and look out into the room around you. Take in the light, take in the objects, take in the color. And then see if you can soften your edges. And so just kind of let the skin around your whole body relax for a moment. And if you feel compelled, maybe take a deep full breath in through the nose. Maybe exhaling the breath out with a little bit of a sigh or a sound. One more time. Breath in. Exhale. And then once you land, decide, do you want to keep your eyes open? Do you want to let your vision kind of expand out into the space that you're in? Or do you need a little bit more internal view? Maybe soften the gaze or close the eyes. And we'll just sit quietly for a moment, checking in. Maybe taking a moment to be grateful for yourself showing up, being here today to learn a little bit more about your own personal health and wellness. Maybe grateful for your friends, your family, anyone who made it possible for you to be here today. maybe being grateful for these amazing teachers, all of these resources we have to continually tap into. There's so much. The well is deep. Go ahead and take one more breath. And then open your eyes, come back, and let's be in this virtual space together. Something that I will admit, I'm a little bit more of an analog girl, so tapping into all of this virtual stuff this past year with the pandemic has been new to me, but I have found some affection for it. So again, thank you, Mita, for making this possible.
Yes.
So the next slide I think is the medicine Buddha. So hopefully we all received a little medicine from that experience. So Thich Nhat Hanh, the monk, the Vietnamese monk, often talks about how Sangha is the next Buddha, right? And so Sangha, you know, so us, the people, right, the community. And so I just love this because really it's the practices that we'll keep, the curiosity that we'll delve into, how we start to care for one another, our communities, how we care for our families, and then the vision that we put out there, like this is the future of our health. This is the future of the health of our planet. And so this is the personal and the collective all at once, right? So anytime you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your community at large and vice versa. Next slide, please. So yoga practice. So I know that by this day and age, you all have probably seen a lot of people on covers of magazines in different various yoga poses. This is myself in a particular yoga pose. So I was a dancer once upon a time ago, and I was introduced to yoga through dancing. But yoga really helped me learn a little bit more about my personal dance, my internal dance. The yoga that I was introduced to a long time ago was much more quiet and contemplative. And then when I quit dancing and became less physical in my dance, my yoga practice really ramped itself up. Sometimes when people come to me, that is the medicine they need, right? They need to get up, they need to move. Next slide, please. Sometimes being in community, as I was saying earlier, so taking classes together. So once upon a time ago, this was really foreign. When I first started in this field, taking yoga was almost like taboo. And now everybody does it, right? So your doctor, your mother, your therapist, even your dog, even your goat, right? So there's everybody's doing yoga these days. And what we generally find is if we make it to a yoga class, if we bring ourselves there, even if we log on to you know, the multitudes of resources we have now on the internet, we generally feel better, right? So it's the practice as well as the communities that we're making. Next slide, please. Again, so there's a lot of fancy poses. There's a lot of beauty into the construct of the body. There's places that we can go. There's places that we can really push and start to learn about our human exploration through the actual physical postures. Next slide, please. But then hopefully we also understand that there are practices that really bring us deep rest, deep solace, deep comfort, and ultimately lead us to a quieter, more internalized, more contemplative place. So even if we are practicing yoga to really inspire us and uplift us, it should always have a bit of inner reflection, right? So it should always bring us a little bit more inner peace and inner wisdom. So it makes the practice somewhat different than going out for a jog, going out for an exercise class, going out for kind of like a workout at the gym, right? So although all of those things are excellent for the health of our physical body, as well as our mental health, which I'm sure you all can testify to, yoga practice really allows us to make way and shift for something bigger. used sometimes in tandem with some of the other physical activities that I discussed. Sometimes that is the medicine that a person needs. Otherwise, there's a lot of folks that feel like their yoga practice can be all of those things. It can be both their physical connection to themselves, as well as diving deeper into more mental health, as well as mental and then spirit, like waking up the spirit and spiritual investigation. Next slide, please. As Mita mentioned in the very beginning, I've had the opportunity to work with large populations of people that differ in their abilities, that differ in their physicalities, that differ in their cultural and professional backgrounds. This has been, I think, one of the most outstanding and exciting things about my career and about the work that I've done. I love getting a chance to work with medical doctors. I love getting a chance to work with businessmen and women who are at the top of their game. I love working with women in homeless shelters that are expecting or have small children. They are all near and dear to my hearts, and we've all been able to find medicine together through learning about ourselves, our collective health, and then again our personal needs and our personal health journey. Oftentimes, where this leads for me and what it is that I like to offer to people is first getting comfortable in your body, right? So kind of understanding what's going on with you, but then starting to really bring in like the bigger philosophies around this work, right? So the whole premise that we are but a microcosm of this larger, right, force, right? And that is the forces of nature. And, ultimately nature being very big, very expansive, the cosmos. And I think that that's a really exciting thing to always connect even a simple physical exercise to, right? I think it's great for the human spirit. And I think that's also a really great way to both uplift and keep us humble in our efforts. Next slide, please. So bringing the beauty of the natural world, the characteristics and the lessons from the natural world into a lot of the discussions that I get a chance to speak on is something that I'm passionate about. So the environment and nature, I wouldn't, it's very heartfelt when I say that, like, nature was my first guru, right? So getting an opportunity to just really connect to the trees, the grass, wide open fields and spaces, that was something that was near and dear to my childhood, and those lessons I've carried with me until middle age. So the beautiful thing about this is that I think when I first started this adventure, when I first studied Ayurveda, learned a little bit Ayurveda food and philosophy in the late 90s, food culture in the United States was más o menos, right? it had room for improvement. So sure, there was health food culture, but it wasn't that inspiring. A lot of times, you would go to like a health food restaurant or a health food resource, and it was perfectly edible, but it wasn't quite beautiful, and it didn't have like a larger philosophy attached. I actually found that traveling to Europe and learning about slow food culture in Italy and France and some of the terroir, all of that really translated well into later my in-depth Ayurvedic studies. And then of course, thank goodness, the celebrity chefs and chef culture really started to bring a lot of that to the United States. And now we have beautiful food and a lot more awareness around where our food is coming from, the connection to seasonal eating, the connection to local farms, and not just why it's better for our economies, but why it's better for our health, again, collectively and personally. And then, of course, as environmental stewards, as someone who would like to, pass on a better and brighter future to the next generation and the next generation. So here you have on the left, you've got fiddlehead ferns, which come up during the spring, and just their nature of being some, good fibrous material, having the bitter green quality, having the bright, beautiful green quality, really sharpens the senses and wakes up the slow, sleepy kind of qualities that we come out of late winter. And then you've got on the right, what's happening right now, right? So you've got our fall markets. And so you've got all the stone fruits, right? The apples that are so good at, moving into canning, juicing, jarring, all these things that you can preserve for the winter to really keep the at first in the early fall stages, kind of pushing some of the heat from summer, the excess heat out of the body. And then in the later fall stages, as we get ready for America's Thanksgiving holiday next week, considering apple pie, bringing some of the balance between the sweetness and the astringency of these foods. So bringing balance into the palate. Next slide, please. So in addition to teaching clients and students about the benefits of aligning with the seasons, I oftentimes introduce people to a variety of new ingredients, sometimes in their kitchen pantry. And we talk a lot about how that their kitchen pantry is, it's your pharmacy, right? So you open up that pantry and you have your spices and you have your food, and it's the thing that you're going to be doing daily, right? So most of it's take time for a meal daily. So it's the medicine. So I've had a great opportunity to introduce, which is now almost commonplace. Well, not commonplace, but it's a lot more popular than when I first started talking about this. Turmeric, different spices. And then here you see on the left, ghee. So again, going back to European culture, ghee was less familiar when I first started speaking on this, but clarified butter, especially if anybody had spent some time in chef's kitchens, was something a little more popular. So I was able to kind of talk about the wisdom of ghee, and we were able to kind of start from the clarified butter and understand not just ghee as your kitchen staple, but ghee as this traditional food that literally is like medicine and is passed down from generation to generation in many Indian households. There's also different, what I would call sometimes superfoods, right? So there are different, what we know as kind of herbal allies or plant allies. And some of these are in the pharmacological background in Ayurveda and no other traditional medicine. And you'll find them, of course, based on the environment, right? So for instance, amla or amalaki, because of the subtropical nature of southern India, it grows beautifully. You can grow it a little bit in Florida. There's some growth here in the United States. But starting to introduce these different fruits, these different seeds, these different whole herbs. Myself, I've got a background in, my family background and ethnicity is Greek. And so one of the herbs that I find incredible for 3 seasons in different forms, leaf, root, and otherwise, and flowers is the dandelion, right? So, finding ways to make and learn about dandelion soup, dandelion tinctures, dandelion greens, sauteed or steamed, adding them to different staples like khichdi. That's something that I've introduced, thousands of students to, and ironically enough, people are excited about it. I think that there's even companies at this day and age that are probably making like dandelion juice. I'm sure it's in a juice. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's there. And next slide, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful what you're doing, and maybe we can talk a little bit. If you can talk a little bit about a typical routine that we should all follow for prevention using Ayurveda and yoga as building block. What on a typical day, like we wake up and then how do we, like, should we drink dandelion tea or eat a little bit ghee, or just on a high level, just on a
Sorry, I'm
high
gonna
level.
take myself for just a second. Sorry, I've got some construction upstairs, and so my dog is making sure that I'm safe.
That's okay.
Thank you, Amita, for the question. So here's the thing, right? There are, of course, large scale advice. And I think that, like, especially when we're talking about pandemic times, like if we were really going to simplify like what's going on right now, so here we are, like 8, almost 9 months into this pandemic. And I think a lot of us collectively in the beginning were very thrown off with our schedules. We're very, our work, our family life, even our food life, and then maybe our food choices and our daily choices may have been a little bit slacking, right? Some of our healthier habits. And so I don't think that there's anyone probably on this call that wouldn't say that that when they think about feeling good in their life, that there's some sort of organization or some kind of schedule, right, that they have themselves on, right? So maybe there was a time in the day where they felt really good exercising. Maybe there was a time in the day where they felt at their brightest and sharpest working. There was a time in the day where they felt more generous towards friends and family and loved ones to engage in social activity, a time in the day where rest, right, was really important. And so finding a schedule and then getting a schedule that really aligns with what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and how that works for you is a little bit personal, right? So of course, there's some instruction in Ayurvedic literature that talks about what we know as dinacharya, right, or our daily rituals.
Yeah, that's right.
Our daily rituals can definitely be divided into maybe 3 categories that work best for the 3 body types, right? And so you've got the vata, the pitta, and the kapha. But all of us are going to fall somewhere in the in-betweens of those, since most of us are dual dosha, right? So most of us have 2 body types that run dominant. And then, of course, your life, what's going on in your life, what changes you're going through, all of those things need some adjustment. And so one of the things that I talk about in some of my lectures is sometimes we get kind of excited if we can like pinpoint our body type and then learn about what's best. And then we just say, okay, I'm putting that up on the wall and I'm just going to follow that. And I think that that's great. It's a great start. But I think like what I was talking about earlier is the yoga and also the Ayurveda. What it will do is when practiced, it'll start to give you a little bit of more of an internal kind of listening tool. And so when you tap into that internal listening tool, you will start to be able to adjust and say, you know what, I feel really good when I wake up and I exercise first thing in the morning. Or you may say, you know what, that used to work so well for me, but now I find in the morning, I need to be quieter, and waking up and doing meditation is best. And doing physical exercise later in the afternoon, later in the day, feels good, and it carries me through the rest of my evening. Or maybe you are saying, oh, I actually used to exercise after work before dinner, and now when I do that, I'm up all night, right? So maybe you're going through like a midlife change, and and so maybe you're the person that's like, maybe I need to switch my exercise routine to the late morning. So all of these things require, what Ram Dass says is being present, be here now, right? So constantly paying attention, fine tuning, and not deciding that a routine works for you because from the outside, it seems like something that works for you, but from the inside, right? So really listening to the antenna, the internal antenna, and where it's directing you based on the goals, both physical, mental, and then of course the spirit, like how you're feeling and how that alignment is coming together.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate your time, and hope our viewers, when they're listening, they can, they can understand what Kristen is trying to say to incorporate Ayurveda and yoga for your daily life, as well as in your life, to give you a tool for introspection, is what I'm understanding, that it gives you a tool to listen better to your inner voice or introspect yourself and see how you're feeling. And being present, right? The being present, which most of the yogis and most of the yogis are talking about today. So yeah, thank you so much, Kristen, for being with us, and help us share these sessions. Give us a feedback to everyone. Any last comment that you'd like to say, Kristen, before we close today?
Thank you. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk about something that has been a part of my life for some time now, and the truth is that every student, every interaction, that is the growth. And so, we're always in a state of constant learning. And so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. And so best wishes on your journey, everybody. I hope it's a healthy one.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you so much.